Hey, Stephen, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Lacey. Thanks for having me.
I think it's so interesting what you do. So, a lot of people may not know. Can you explain what ghostwriting is?
That yes, before I became a ghostwriter, I thought probably what most people think about ghostwriting is somebody says, I want to write a book. They call a ghostwriter and they say, I want to write a book on horses, and then voila, a 200-page book about horses shows up, and you have your book. That's what I thought ghostwriting was, and I think early on that may have been it, but really what it is from my perspective, is me coming alongside someone and really kind of coaching them to write their book, and as a collaboration project. I don't look at it as I'm going to write you need a book. I'm just going to write it for you because that's then I should just put my name on it. But really, what ghostwriting is coming alongside of someone who has a story, who has something to tell or to say, but doesn't know how to articulate it in writing, in written form, or in paragraph form, or formatting. Those kind of things as what a book looks like. And so that's what I do. I come alongside and help them craft a book that is in their tone, is in their voice, is in their personality. That if you read it, you go, "Oh wow, this person wrote it," and so that's kind of that that's the excitement for me is jumping in and doing that with different people.
So, it's in their tone, their personality. Is it also in their name and not yours?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's many different ways that people when a ghostwriter sometimes, so depending on who it is, and the reach of the book and the purpose of the book. A lot of times, like for me, I'll show up on the book as the editor because I'll help do the writing, and then we take a break for a few days and then go back and go into the editing process and edit through the book. And so I typically show up as the editor, um, which is cool for me because then it gives me that notoriety, if you will, but without the aura or the, I don't know, people still, like when they're ghostwriter, like, oh, that means you didn't write your book, and it's so much more than that, for me. And so I enjoy being just credited as the editor. Sometimes you'll see a book that says, like a book written, and it's like it'll say like with Stephen Leapley or with a name on there. And typically, if you see the with, that person is probably a ghostwriter that helped them write a book.
What was the catalyst for you to become a ghostwriter, or was it something that you started in slowly?
Uh, hmm. The catalyst was probably when my wife and I were both in grad school. Because I was editing. I kind of was doing a little bit of copywriting, and editing and such. And I had written curriculum when I was in the military myself, and so she came to me one day. She's like, "I need you to edit my paper," and I said, "Sure, excellent. Another paper to do." And she handed me a paper, and I knew the class, and I was like, and she had a 4-page paper. I was like, how long does this paper need to be? And she's like, 10 pages. And I said, well, you only have 4. You need to write more. She's like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done writing. I'm like, no, babe. Like, I know this class. Like, you can't even turn in a 5-page. It has to be exact. And she was like, well, if you want to do it for me, that's fine, but I'm done writing. And she's very matter of fact, and she writes like she speaks. And so it was always fun editing because I had to edit it from a speaking kind of philosophy into an academic paper. And so that particular paper, I ended up, writing the rest of it and getting it in her tone. And because I'm like, I can't just write it in my tone because you could clearly see the difference in the writing style. And so I had to really, invest some time. And it was a little bit easier because she's my wife, to be able to know her tone. What it taught me was like, this is really cool. So I ended up for most of the rest of our grad school, editing and probably ghostwriting 20% of her paper for her. And so that's really where I kind of cut my teeth at when it came to ghostwriting, and really where I found my niche of saying, oh, I can actually embody the person that I'm taking over. And so that was really cool because a buddy of mine calls me the Jim Carrey of copywriting because it's just because like how Jim Carrey when he gets into character, like he gets into character, and and I feel like that's kind of what I do with my clients that I ghostwrite books for. I really just get into their brain and into their personality.
So you started doing this work. What did that look like when it started to turn into maybe a side hustle or a full-time thing for you? How did you get clients or market your services?
I I've done everything organically. In fact, it's just this last week was the first time in the 6 years that I've been doing copywriting, ghostwriting, that I've actually ever done paid ads, and I did it on a whim for an ebook that I wrote, and just to see what would happen. Um, but everything has been organic. I was at a I was at a networking event, and I ran into a buddy of mine from high school 30 years ago, and we were chatting, and my family and I were just getting ready to take off on a cross country RV trip, and he's like, "Well, how are you going to fund it?" And I'm doing some editing right now, and he's like, "Well, I have some things that I need editing," and I was like, "I could do that," and he's like, "How are your copywriting skills?" And I'm like, "Decent," and he's like, "Well, how about if I hire you as my copywriter, and I'll help fund your trip?" And so that's kind of how I got started, and that was 2018. Um, when I started that, and so I was a client of his until 2021, and and he helped fund my trip, and so I really got into that, and then he introduced me to people. He was like, "Hey, this is my copywriter," and like, "Oh, you do copywriting?" So I from that I would get copywriting clients, and then one of my clients that I still have, one of my first clients. She's technically my second client I ever had, but she's still a client of mine. She's my only copywriting client that I have, and she was like, "Hey, can you help me edit a book?" And so my book, and I said, "Yeah." And so I edited her book. We sent it to the publisher. She comes back. She's like, "So good news, bad news. The bad news, or the good news is they like it, but we have to double the amount of words, because when they did all the formatting, it was like a 50-page book, and they're like, we need it to be at least 88 pages." And I was like, "Okay, cool, I can do that." She's like, "The bad news is we have 96 hours to do it." And so it was awesome afterwards, looking back, because it taught me that it gave me the ability to say I can do this, effectively if I need to. And so that process of helping her write the book really set me off in this motion of, I really enjoy doing the book piece of it more than the other copywriting stuff. And so I kind of shifted into focusing on books and blogs or articles for people. And so that's kind of where I've been the last year and a half.
Does it require a lot of self-discipline? I mean, you're probably working at your own pace. What does the daily work look like of being a ghostwriter?
That's I think for everybody's a little bit different. So we also I have a bunch of kids, and we have a farm, and so I do a lot of my writing in the evening times. And so during the day I spend probably 2 days a week on my business during the day, during business hours, and the rest of the time I'm doing projects around the house with the farm, because we have cows and goats and chickens and turkeys and such. And so that's a full-time job in and of itself. And so but it's nice because I have the ability to break away and work, during normal hours if I can. But I'll come into my office, and usually as the sun's starting to go down, because I look west, and I can, as the sun's setting, it's a good atmosphere for me to just type out and go for it. And so that's usually how I end up spending my day. Is my writing piece of it is mostly done in the evenings.
So you've gotten a lot of your clients just by word of mouth and doing the work and getting connected with other people. Mentioned maybe doing a paid ad just to shed some light maybe on your ebook. Do you think that that's like typical for other ghostwriters? So for people that are listening that are interested in becoming a ghostwriter while they're on active duty as a side hustle, or for military spouses that are looking to work around military life and work from home, for it to be virtual, how can they get into this world and get clients and market themselves if they are just starting out?
Oh, really, like if you're starting out as a side hustle, I mean, just grab yourself a Facebook page or an Instagram profile, or add it to your LinkedIn, and just kind of begin to market yourself and as a ghostwriter. I started like a a content group on Facebook, and I just started daily putting out different contents, and free content of this is here's how you make your content better, here's how you write better, because I had that experience of writing, and I am confident as a writer. So I would just go on and post little snippets. I'd go live a couple times a week for a few minutes, and teach something, teach a concept of how to formulate a paragraph, or 5 ways that you can 5 different categories of people that you can organize your Facebook groups into. And then I would put up a post and say, by the way, like a sales ad on my post, or in my group, hey, I'm a ghostwriter, I'm a copywriter, I'm available if you do XYZ, reach out to me. And that's kind of how it all began. And I had one person bite, and started off just writing 2 blogs a month for her. And then that turned into a client of me doing some copywriting, which became the client for the book that I spoke about a moment ago. And so that's kind of how I became. And then as I was working up with her, I was able to use her as a testimonial. I was able to, she was like, in her dealing, she was a business coach, or she is a business coach. And so in working with her clients and in her networking circles, she'd be like, oh, people are like, I need to write, but I don't have time. She's like, I have the perfect person for you. And so it's all been kind of organic for me, which really fits my lifestyle anyway. So it feels natural. I know some people are like, probably one of the, Jim Edwards is probably the biggest copywriter name one of the biggest copywriter names out there. And he, he'll like spend money on ads, and you don't have to, especially if you're starting out as a side hustle. You can start off small. You can, I think I went in there one time and said, hey, I'm just looking to build my portfolio, and I want to write blogs for 5 people. I'll do 2 blogs, for 5 people, and for free, just to build my portfolio, and so I did that when I first started as well, and it just kind of naturally gravitated to that. I have a networking kind of personality, so it's just easy for me to talk to people, and so I think for someone who is more extroverted, or has that ability, it's easier just to talk and say, hey, this is what I want to do. Can I do something for you? And it's the kind of whole like tact and timing thing. It's much easier to think about that and to build a business if you're doing it as a side hustle, versus you wake up one day, you quit your job, and you go, I'm going to be a writer.
Yeah, yeah, that's going a little cold turkey there. And it's hard, I think, to start out making money at business, and I don't think people realize that. How did you get past the doing it for free? Because that, I think, is important. You do need to prove that you're capable or qualified to do what you say you're going to do. Some evidence to go from that to charging. To say, hey, are you charging by the word, or are you charging by the project? How does that work?
There's so many schools of thought on that. I feel like I spent countless hours on the internet looking at and in different groups and forums, asking questions. I did join a copyright. It's called the Copywriter Club. It was one of the bigger kind of copywriting clubs out there, and invested in time and money into that. into that group so that I can learn how to market myself and how to charge. Um, I, for me, and I know a lot of people, we charge by the project, which is so much easier than charging by the word. Because if you charge by the word, sometimes two things kind of come out there. One, if you charge by the word, you're probably still in your early stages of business, which isn't a bad thing. It just, but what happens is when you charge by the word, the client sometimes is like, okay, so how are what kind of words are you going to use? Are you going to use a lot of filler words? Are you making it bigger so
Yeah.
that you get paid more? And so that just, for me, when you charge by the project, it just eliminates all that. It's like, we have a project to do. Here's the cost. And I think anything, like when it comes to making money, it's the energy and the mindset that you have behind it. When I know when I would go into some of my early sales calls, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to put food on the table. I have to pay. I have to, the electricity is going to be turned off if I don't, make a couple $100 this month. And that energy comes into your sales call. And so when you have your bills paid, especially if you're starting off, you have this energy of like, okay, I've done my research. I've been writing for 10 years, even though I haven't started anything. I feel like I could charge $200 for a blog, and you sit down with someone and you're talking to them, and that kind of confident energy that comes out in those calls is really cool, because you don't have that mindset of oh my gosh, I have to close the sale. You have the mindset of I get to help this person do something. And I think that is, when it comes to making money with it, that's a critical piece that you have to get to. And it took me a couple of years to really fully get to that point. But I kind of didn't go cold turkey. So I was, I did it not necessarily out of necessity, but just out of like, okay, I'm just going to do this, and we're going to do it and make it work. And my wife is very supportive, and we live a minimalistic lifestyle. So we didn't need a lot. So it didn't require me to close, 5-figure, 6-figure deals. Like I didn't have to close those every month.
What's a hard lesson that you've learned in writing and being a ghostwriter that that maybe you could share that would help other people avoid that?
Um, you have to check your ego at the door. I'm confident in how I write and what I can bring to the table, which is great. You have to have that. You have to have that skill. But there's also, I had one client where it just didn't work out, and we couldn't come to an agreement, other than we agreed that we couldn't come to an agreement. So, uh, and which, and that's a great place to be too, of knowing who you can and can't work with. But just, I think, setting expectations, and if you don't set those expectations at the very beginning, or you have unspoken expectations, those can lead to downfalls in the projects.
Yeah, or people having unrealistic expectations, I think too.
Yeah.
That people just can't fulfill what they're hoping. But I think it's a good point you bring up. A lot of people, the ego in business, don't realize how much of it is customer service. Like, you're trying to get a paying client, they're trying to get somebody to help them write because they have a need for that. And so on both ends, you can't have an ego. You're trying to come to, like you said, terms. And if you're big for your britches and demanding an astronomical price for a small project or something like that, like, you have to realize that every situation is going to be different.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, one of the cool things about if you when you're starting out as a side hustle, you get the opportunity to pick your clients, to pick who you want to work with. And obviously, you have to walk through the process of closing a client. However, the benefit is, if you don't have to do it, and you do it because you want to, or you do it because you get to, there is usually a more humility that comes with that. And and for me, coming out of the military, I was a Navy corpsman for 10 years, and in the medical field as a paramedic, and so my ego was really high, and we used to say in the medical field, like, paramedics, walk on water, was kind of the funny statement that we used to do, and I would be like, yeah, well, I invented the water that I walked on, like that was where my ego was, and so for me, getting into ghostwriting and copywriting was a great character container. I was able to just, because I couldn't show up and be like, yeah, I wrote this, so I had to be like, this person, this is a book. You should read this book. This is really good, or this content or this blog you should really check out, without giving any credit to myself. And I think that's an amazing skill to have, when you can write something and somebody else gets the credit for it, and you don't need the credit for it.
Yeah.
People ask me like, well, don't you get the credit? I'm like, I do. It comes in greenbacks. It goes right into my bank, and it allows me to do what I want to do. That's all the credit I really need for me.
Yeah. Well, that I think is amazing because I could see that as hard to deal with because you've worked so hard and created that for somebody, the extra mile to put it in their voice and their personality, and then to not get any credit for it. But I would think too there are some perks. I mean you still are ultimately beholden to your client, but it's like, okay, well, you don't have the fear of how this will look publicly, in the full broad, like, of somebody that is their name, that is something they've written, putting it out there. So I think it probably frees you a little bit in your ability to write something, because you're not that person thinking like, oh, what will people think? You know that as a reality because you
Yeah.
see that person or hear, meet them or talk to them.
Yep. It was funny because the first book that I had my name in as an editor was kind of like that. We got the book and we're looking through it, and I noticed a couple of typos that I missed, she missed, the publisher has an editor that
Yeah.
goes through it one time, missed, and it was like, and that was like the first thought in my head was like, I just tanked my business. Somebody's gonna see that and they'll be like, well, he's not a good editor. I'm not gonna hire him. And it's a crazy like mind thing that happens, and
Yeah.
but it's once you kind of walk through that, and again, like, the more, for me, my belief is the more organic your business is, the easier it is to navigate those thoughts, and just kind of, yep, we're all human. We do our best. We might make a mistake or two, and and now with my one client, we're on her we're on her fourth book, and now we kind of joke. We're like, okay, once it comes out, what did we miss? So we go, it's so now we build that into it, to where we have the deadline of everything, and really the deadline is like a week later, but her publisher will give her a deadline of that. So we don't even think about the week later deadlines. When we get everything done now, we're like, awesome. And then we go back and read it through like 3 days after that. We're like, oh crap, we missed something. And then we're like, oh wait, we have 3 more days. So
Yeah.
it's you just kind of build that into the process, I think.
Yeah, and I think everybody's like that. Even like blog posts, or I was recently on a very, I won't say who the person is, but a very big website. Very, very rich, successful person. And I saw a typo and I was like, I felt like $1 million. I was like, I am so excited to see that they have a mistake too. So it made me feel great about myself that they had a mistake on their website, because that's always something you're worried about, mistakes. And you're like, if the big people can make mistakes, like I'm doing all right. So I hear you're there.
Yep.
But and you could look at something over and over again, reread it, and it just be right there in front of you. But you've just been looking at it so much, you just don't see it.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, when I finish a project, I walk away from it and I don't even look at it for at least 3 days, so that when I go back, I have a fresh set of eyes that I can look through.
If somebody's thinking about becoming a ghostwriter, what's something about ghostwriting that many people worry about that really isn't that important when you get into the work of doing it?
That's a really good question.
Probably a
I
logo.
think
Like, do
there's,
you need a logo as a ghostwriter? Like, little stuff like that.
you know, it's, probably like, do you need a website? Kind of, it's, you do, you need to have, you still need to have presence because you're building a business. It's, it's, it's. I think we worry. For me, my biggest worry was trying to get testimonials or how do I navigate sharing, here's the projects that I've worked on, but you're a ghostwriter. And so, but then on the other side of it is when I talk about ghostwriting, and even a bit on my website, we're talking more about the collaboration effort. So it's not me blindly writing a book. It's me, working with someone. And so a lot of times, you know, I've only done 2 books that were non-disclosures where I couldn't speak or I can't speak about it at all. And but everybody else has been really like, yes, like the one book that I just finished, she's like, I want to put your name on my book. Like I want people to know, that what you do. And so that was really cool. And so I think, the more you build relationships, the less questions like that come into your head, and the less worry there is, because it just becomes a part of who you are.
Yeah. I mean, I think when I think of business too, it's the fear of the unknown. Like if you haven't done it yet, you're scared of it, or because you're like, what's going to come next? But the more and more experience you have, one, you have experiences that you were worried about, and you're like, oh, that wasn't that bad, or it's like you'll have an experience, and you're like, there was no way I could have possibly known that was going to happen. So it really wouldn't have mattered if I was worrying about it or not. So until you start doing the work, it starts to do away with some of those worries, I would think.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to ask you a couple of quick random questions I ask everybody. First
Okay.
off, what is one resource or tool that you use that makes your life easier or your work?
I'm gonna go with the obvious and say Chat GPT. it's,
Oh,
it's,
yes.
it really has made my work. And I say that because it's a hot topic with everybody, and I think it's important for people to understand it's a like money, it's a tool, and so
Yep.
if you use it well, it serves you well. If you don't use it well, it doesn't serve you well. And so I've learned how to allow it to serve me well. And so it helps me save time. It helps me wrap concepts easier and get clarity around my thought process. And then it gives me the ability to write better, I believe.
What is your favorite book right now or your favorite book of all time?
It's a really, I'm a writer, so I read a lot. I was actually thinking about that the other day. This right here, it's called The Power of Pause,
Oh, okay.
by Terry Hershey. Is he? It's really about slowing down. It's a book about slowing down, but he broke it the way he broke it down. He broke it into, there's 52 chapters, so essentially you can read a chapter a week, and it's broken into the 4 seasons. And then in those seasons, it's broken into the early season and the late season. So you could literally pick up the book and start any time and read it. I think I've read it probably 8 or 9 times. That's my third. That's my third book I have, because I'll write it. I'll write notes in pencil. I'll write notes in blue ink, red ink, purple ink, and then I'm like, okay, I need a new book to go back through. It's for me, it's one of those timeless books that really helps me with perspective.
I love that one. Well, I'll be sure to put links to that in the show notes for everybody so they can check it out. Now it is time for my favorite part of the podcast, which is game time. And today, in honor of your visit, we're going to be playing RV trivia. And it's a tribute to
I
your
love it.
life. So I found a trivia online, and I'm going to give you 5 of those questions. There are going to be multiple choice answers, and if you get 3 out of the 5 right, you get bragging rights that you won game time on the MILMO show, which is a big deal. No pressure. No
Okay.
pressure.
Okay.
Okay,
No
number one.
pressure.
What year was the first RV built? Was it A, 1904, B, 1914, or D, 1932? And you can't use ChatGPT.
I need a training timeout, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with 1904.
That is correct. The first one was 1904. I think it was like a box put on the back of a little Model T or something like that, a little car. So, okay.
Nice.
Number 2. In 2021, how much was the RVing industry worth? In 2021 in the US. Was it A, 90 million, B, 20 billion, or C, 140 billion?
I'm gonna go with 20 billion. B.
It's actually C, $140 billion. I couldn't believe that. That's 3 years ago.
Wow. I mean,
Although, I mean,
actually, yeah, I could see that. 100%.
okay, number 3. What is the average miles an RVer travels to their campsite? Is it A, 150 miles, B, 190 miles, or C, 250 miles? So 150,
150,
190, or
190.
250?
I'm gonna go with 150.
It's actually 190.
That's what I said.
Yeah,
Wait,
that's what you
I'm
said
gonna
it first.
hold on.
I'm gonna give you that one.
I'm an
'cause you said
editor.
it.
I'm an editor. We're gonna
You're an
edit back.
edit back. You did say 190 first, so I'll give you that one. Okay. Number
Okay.
4. How many U.S. households own an RV? And this was in 2021 that it was done. A,
Okay.
2 million, B, 8 million, or C, 11 million?
I'm gonna go with 11 million.
That is correct. 11 million households in 2021 owned a RV. Okay. So that is 2 correct. No, 3 correct. So you already won, but we're going to finish strong, okay? So number 5.
Okay.
As of 2021, how many campsites are in the U.S.? Is it A, 1,664,861, B, 1,890,000, or C, 1,991,000?
I'm gonna go with
So
B.
it's actually the 1.6.
The first one?
Yeah, the first one. So you didn't get a last one, but you did get bragging rights that you won game time on the MILMO show. So that I feel like probably is going to make your year. Well,
Do I get a little plaque? I'm gonna,
you get bragging rights. That's what it
just
is.
bragging rights. I love it.
Bragging rights. That's it.
Love it.
Stephen, I appreciate you playing the game and being on the show. Can you tell everybody listening where they can learn more about you and what you're up to?
The two easiest places is one is my website, which is leapleyenterprises.com. And that kind of breaks down everything that I do. And then on LinkedIn, I'm super active on LinkedIn, and it's just my name. Those are probably the two biggest places that you can find me. And I know we didn't talk about this, but anyone who listens and connects with me, if we could throw out in my Instagram too, because I know there's a lot of people that are on Instagram, and so my Instagram handle is just Stephen Leapley Official, and it's this beautiful mug here. But if anybody who's listening, I wrote an ebook called 21 Questions You Should Ask a Ghostwriter Before You Hire One. And so, which is super important, to vet anyone. And so, if anyone who's listened, if we can, if they connect with me and shoot me a DM and just say Ghostwriter in the DM, I will give them a free copy of that ebook. And which reminds me, when we're done, I will email it to you as well.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I'll be sure to put links to all of that in the show notes for everybody so they can check it out. Thank you again, Stephen. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate your time.